For 3 years of marriage, I shit my guts out over 100 times. Every single time was right after eating dinner at my in-laws' house. At first I thought I just had a weak digestive system. I realized that if I ate at my own parents' place or cooked for myself, I was perfectly fine. I told my husband about this pattern. He sneered, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean? You think my mom is poisoning you?" I said no. But deep down I knew something was wrong. That afternoon, my bowels exploded again. Was our company's quarterly review. Over 30 people were crammed into the conference room. My boss was going over Q1 sales metrics when my stomach suddenly clenched. The pain was agonizing, like someone was twisting my intestines into a knot. I lasted exactly 5 minutes before I couldn't hold it. I stood up, hunched over and bolted. My boss stopped mid-sentence and stared. The whole fucking department stared. I sat on the toilet for 20 miserable minutes. When I finally crawled out, my face was ash white. Back in the conference room, my boss looked pissed. After the meeting, he called me into his office. "Sarah, how many times have you called out or left early this quarter?" I stared at the floor. 7. All stomach issues? Yes. He sighed. Go to a doctor and get this sorted out. Work is work, but your health comes first. I nodded, saying nothing. I had been to the doctor more than 10 fucking times. Endoscopies, colonoscopies, ultrasounds, blood tests. The doctor said my gastrointestinal tract was flawless. Perfectly healthy, but I kept shitting my brains out. 3 years over 100 times. I thought of every possibility. Food allergies, tested. Stress, but it only happened when I ate at my mother-in-law's house. I told my husband Brad about this trend. He was mid-game, not even looking up. What are you trying to say? I think maybe it's something in the food your mom cooks. He paused the game and snapped his head toward me. His eyes were cold. Sarah, are you listening to your own bullshit? My mom slaves over a hot stove making 4 different dishes. Specifically cooking bland shit just for you. Do you know how exhausting that is for her? I know, but... But what? You eat her food for free and then accuse her of hurting you? I'm not accusing. I'm just saying there's a possibility. What possibility? That my mother is spiking your damn food. I shut my mouth, unpaused his game and ignored me the rest of the night. We slept in the same bed, backs turned to each other. Listening to him snore. I remembered all those nights spent agonizing on the toilet. The first time was 3 days after our wedding. Brenda made a massive feast to welcome me. That night my ass exploded. Brad said it was just my stomach adjusting to new rich foods. Second time was a week later. Brenda's cooking again. More explosive diarrhea. Brad told me my gut was just trash. Third time, fourth time. Fifth time. Every time after a meal at their place. Every time I brought it up. Brad called me a paranoid psycho. Why the hell would my mom want to hurt you? She wants nothing but the best for us. Does she? I thought about the way Brenda looked at me. Smiling, sweet. Like a textbook Midwestern mom. But sometimes the second she turned around, I'd catch a different look in her eye. Hard to describe. Cold. Bitchy, like she was looking at a parasite. I told myself I was tripping. Brenda was always so nice to me. She cooked a huge spread every time. She packed Tupperware for us. She gave me generous gift cards for Christmas. How could she be hurting me but the diarrhea? How the fuck do you explain that? I decided to do something without telling a single soul. I bought a hidden spy camera and stuck it right in my sweet mother-in-law's kitchen. I needed an answer. Even if the answer was that I was a crazy bitch making shit up. Even if Brad called me a psycho. I had to know. This weekend we went over to his parents for Sunday dinner. Brenda was thrilled. She went to the farmer's market early and had been bustling around all day. The house smelled like heaven. "Sarah, sweetie, you're here." Brenda poked her head out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a grease-stained apron. "Have a seat. It's almost ready." I forced a smile. Brad went into the garage to drink beer with his dad, Gary. I was alone in the living room. I stared at the half-open kitchen door, watching Brenda's busy silhouette. She was fast chopping, frying, plating, a real pro. Soon the dining table was covered in pot roast potatoes and beans. Small bowl of grilled lemon shrimp was placed directly in front of my seat. "Sarah loves shrimp, so I got these just for you." Brenda smiled warmly. "I know your tummy has been sensitive, so I made sure there's no spice. Very mild." "Thanks, Mom." I took a bite of the shrimp. Brenda watched me chew. Her eyes crinkled, a sweet smile on her face. "Is it good?" "It's great. Eat up, honey." I took another bite. The whole family started eating. Gary and Brad were talking about the NFL draft, while Brenda kept pushing food onto my plate. "Sarah, have some more potatoes. They're good for your stomach." "Sarah, try the green beans. Lots of fiber." I nodded and ate. But in my head, I was starting a countdown. Usually 2 hours after the meal, my stomach would start dropping. Sure enough, on the drive back, the sharp cramps hit. Brad was driving. I clutched my stomach, the color draining from my face. "What now?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, annoyed. "My stomach hurts." He rolled his eyes and didn't say a word. The second we pulled into our driveway, I sprinted to the bathroom. I was stuck on the toilet for half an hour, sweating through my shirt. When I dragged myself out, Brad was watching Netflix. I slumped onto the sofa, drained. He looked over. "Maybe you should go to the GI doctor again." I did. "They said I'm fine." "Then it's all in your fucking head." I didn't respond. "All in my head." He said that every single time, like I was some hysterical freak. Like I was purposefully trying to make his mom look bad. I wasn't. I just wanted to know why. Why the fuck did I only shit liquid after eating her food? Why was I fine everywhere else? Why couldn't the doctors find a single goddamn thing wrong with me? Monday morning, I called in sick. I drove to an electronics store. I bought a pinhole camera. It was tiny, easily disguised. It hooked up to an app on my phone, live streaming in 1080p. I hid it in my purse. Next time we went over, that camera was going into Brenda's kitchen. Brad had no clue. If he knew, he would lose his shit. He'd call me a psycho. He'd say I was disrespecting his family. I didn't give a fuck anymore. 3 years of diarrhea. I'd had enough. I wanted the fucking truth. Next weekend, back at the in-laws, I faked needing to use the restroom and slipped into the kitchen. Instead, Brenda was in the living room with Gary. The kitchen was empty. I scanned the room quickly. Above the range hood right in the corner. Dark, greasy. Completely unnoticeable. I stepped onto a stool and slapped the magnetic camera up there. The lens pointed straight down at the stove. I adjusted my shirt and walked out casually. "Everything okay, Sarah?" Brenda called out from the recliner. "Yeah, just washing my hands." "Mom, stay out of the kitchen, sweetie. It's a mess right now." I smiled sweetly. "Will do. After dinner?" We left in the passenger seat. I secretly opened the app. The feed was crystal clear. I could see the stove, the prep area, and part of the fridge. I locked my phone, my heart hammering. Now all I had to do was wait for the next time Brenda cooked. The wait was agonizing. Tuesday bled into Wednesday, then Thursday. I went to work, sat in my cubicle, and stared at the blank screen of my monitor, my finger constantly hovering over the camera app icon on my phone. Every time I opened it, the feed showed the same quiet, empty kitchen. Spotless countertops. Gleaming stainless steel. The silent battleground where I had been systematically dismantled for 3 years. By Friday afternoon, Brad texted me. "Mom wants us over for dinner tomorrow night. 6 p.m. Don't be late." I stared at the text. "No, how are you feeling? No, if you're up for it. Just an order." I replied, "Sounds good. I'll be ready." Saturday rolled around. I spent the afternoon prepping. I wasn't just going to watch the feed, I needed physical evidence. If I went to the police or a lawyer with just a video of Brenda putting some unknown liquid into my food, Brad would spin it. He'd say it was liquid smoke, or a special seasoning extract, or some herbal digestive aid she bought to help my sensitive stomach. He would gaslight me, and she would play the crying, victimized mother. I needed the chemical profile. I took a small, sterile plastic specimen vial I'd bought from a pharmacy and slipped it into my bra. I wore a loose, oversized sweater. The drive to their house was suffocating. Brad had the radio blasting some sports talk show, completely ignoring me. I looked at his profile, the strong jaw, the relaxed posture. This was the man who had vowed to protect me, in sickness and in health. For 3 years, I had sobbed on the bathroom floor, clutching my stomach, while he sat on the other side of the wall complaining about the smell or turning up the TV volume. A cold, heavy stone settled at the bottom of my stomach. The love I had for him was dying, cell by cell. We pulled into the driveway. Brenda was already opening the front door before Brad even put the car in park. She wore her trademark floral apron, her face split into a wide, welcoming grin. "There are my boys," she cooed, hugging Brad, before turning to me. The smile remained, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sarah, sweetie. You're looking a little pale. Let's get some good food in you." "Thanks, Brenda," I said, my voice deadpan. "Dad's out back firing up the grill for the steaks," she told Brad. "Go on out, grab a beer." Brad didn't even look at me. "Sweet." He vanished through the sliding glass door. "I'm just going to finish up the sides in the kitchen," Brenda said, patting my arm. "You just relax on the couch, honey. You know how cooking exhausts you." "I will," I said, sitting down heavily on the plush living room sofa. The second the kitchen door swung shut behind her, I pulled out my phone and opened the app. The feed was perfectly positioned. It looked straight down at the stovetop and the prep island. I watched Brenda moving around in high definition. She was boiling potatoes, stirring a pot of gravy, and assembling a salad. Everything looked completely normal. For 10 minutes, I watched her hum to herself, tasting the gravy, adjusting the salt. A sliver of doubt crept into my mind. What if I am crazy? What if it really is just my body rejecting her rich food? Then, she stopped. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the far end of the kitchen, out of frame for a few seconds. When she stepped back into the camera's view, my breath caught in my throat. She was holding a small, amber glass dropper bottle. The kind you'd use for essential oils. She walked over to the prep island. There were 2 bowls of mashed potatoes. One was a large, decorative serving bowl for the family. The other was a smaller, individual bowl. My bowl. She always made my portions separate, claiming she used a dairy-free butter substitute so it wouldn't upset my stomach. I watched, my blood running like ice water in my veins, as my sweet, Midwestern mother-in-law unscrewed the cap of the amber bottle. She squeezed the rubber top, drawing up the liquid. She hovered the glass pipette over my small bowl of potatoes. 1 drop. 2 drops. 3. 4. She did a full, heavy squirt of the clear liquid directly into my food. Then, she capped the bottle, slipped it into her apron pocket, and took a spoon. She stirred my potatoes vigorously, blending the poison seamlessly into the fluffy white mash. As she stirred, she looked down at the bowl. Even on the tiny screen of my phone, I could see the expression on her face. It was a sneer of pure, unadulterated contempt. She looked at my food the way you look at a cockroach you're about to step on. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. The vindication was a physical rush, but the horror of it was suffocating. I hit the record button on the app, saving the last 5 minutes of footage to my camera roll. Dinner's ready. Brenda's voice trilled from the kitchen, bright and cheerful. I shoved the phone into my pocket and stood up. My knees felt like water, but the rage building in my chest locked them into place. I walked to the dining table. Brad and Gary came inside, smelling of charcoal and cheap beer. We all sat down. Brenda brought out the dishes. She placed the main bowl of potatoes in front of Gary, and then, with a loving smile, placed the small bowl directly in front of me. "There you go, Sarah," she said warmly. "Made special, just for you. Extra mild. I want you to eat the whole thing, okay? You're too skinny." "Thank you, Brenda," I said, looking right into her eyes. "You're too kind." I took my fork. Everyone was busy cutting into their steaks and chatting. I scooped up a large bite of the potatoes. I brought the fork to my mouth, parted my lips, and then, feigning a sudden coughing fit, I covered my mouth with a large cloth napkin. In one fluid, practiced motion, I spat the potatoes into the napkin, wiping my mouth while simultaneously dropping the clump of mashed potatoes into the plastic vial hidden in my lap. I screwed the cap on tight beneath the table and dropped it into my purse. I spent the next 20 minutes pushing the remaining potatoes around my plate, flattening them out to make it look like I had eaten half the bowl. I only swallowed the steak and the salad from the communal bowls. "How is it, honey?" Brenda asked, eyes locked on my plate. "Delicious," I said, forcing a tight smile. "I'm stuffed." "Good," she purred. 2 hours later, we were in the car driving home. This was the window. This was when the cramps usually hit. Since I hadn't ingested the poison, my stomach felt perfectly fine. But I needed them to think the cycle was continuing. I needed the charade to last just a little longer. I began to moan, clutching my stomach and curling into a ball in the passenger seat. Brad sighed loudly, a sound of profound annoyance. "Again, Sarah? Seriously?" "My stomach," I gasped, forcing a tear out of the corner of my eye. "It hurts so bad, Brad." "Pull over." "I'm not pulling over on the fucking interstate," he snapped, accelerating. "Hold it. Jesus Christ, it's every time we go to my parents' house. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? It's psychological. You hate my mom, so your brain just makes you sick." "I don't hate your mom," I whispered, the irony tasting like ash in my mouth. "Whatever," he spat. "Just don't shit in my car." The moment we pulled into the garage, I sprinted into the house and locked myself in the master bathroom. I turned on the exhaust fan, ran the sink faucet, and sat on the closed toilet seat. I pulled the plastic vial out of my purse and stared at the clump of tainted potatoes inside. Outside the door, I heard the TV click on. Gunfire from Call of Duty echoed through the hallway. He didn't come to check on me. He didn't ask if I needed water or medicine. He just started his game. I sat in the bathroom for 30 minutes, staring at the wall, letting the last remnants of my marriage bleed out on the cold tile floor. Monday morning, I called out of work. I didn't go to my regular GI doctor. Instead, I drove to a private, independent toxicology and forensics lab 2 towns over. I paid $600 in cash for an expedited mass spectrometry analysis of the food sample. I told the technician I suspected foul play and needed a full breakdown of any foreign chemical compounds, specifically targeting laxatives, emetics, or heavy metals. We'll have the results by Wednesday afternoon, the tech told me, bagging the vial. For the next 2 days, I lived like a ghost in my own house. I barely spoke to Brad. I slept on the far edge of the mattress. During the day, while at work, I kept the camera app open on my second monitor, recording everything that happened in Brenda's kitchen. I discovered that she had a routine. She rarely cooked during the day, mostly just making coffee or sandwiches. But on Tuesday afternoon at 4:30 p.m., the motion alert on the app pinged. I clicked it open. Brenda was in the kitchen, but she wasn't alone. Brad was there. He had gotten off work early and stopped by his parents' house before coming home. I put my earbuds in and cranked the volume to the max. The microphone on the pinhole camera was sensitive, picking up their voices perfectly. Brad was leaning against the counter, drinking a beer, looking stressed. Brenda was slicing apples. "She's just getting worse, Mom," Brad complained, rubbing his temples. Sunday night was a nightmare. She was locked in the bathroom for an hour. The smell. I can't even look at her right now. It's disgusting. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I told you, Bradley," Brenda said smoothly, not looking up from her knife. "She has a weak constitution. She's frail. A man like you needs a robust woman. A woman who can keep up with you, go on trips, give you healthy children. Sarah is just defective." "I know," Brad sighed. "I know. But a divorce right now would ruin me financially. We bought the house together. She'd take half my 401k. I'm just so tired of living with a sick person." Brenda set the knife down. She walked over and put a comforting hand on her son's arm. "You just need to be patient, sweetie. You let her break herself down. The weaker she feels, the more depressed she gets, the less fight she'll have in her. When she finally leaves, or when you finally hand her the papers, she won't have the energy to fight you in court. She'll just want it to be over." Brad took a sip of his beer. He looked down at the floor. "I just want my life back." "Are you sure? Are you sure this is going to work? What if she figures it out?" The breath was knocked out of my lungs. I froze in my cubicle, my hand clamped over my mouth. "He knows." "She won't figure it out," Brenda laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "The doctors already told her she's fine. It's the perfect setup. She thinks she's crazy, and everyone else thinks she's a hypochondriac. Just keep bringing her over for Sunday dinners. I'll take care of the rest. That special liquid I bought online? It leaves the system in 24 hours. Completely untraceable by standard blood panels." Brad nodded slowly. "Yeah. Okay. Just be careful, Mom. If she actually catches on, she'll destroy us." "She's a spineless little mouse," Brenda sneered. "She doesn't have the guts to do anything but cry on the toilet." I stopped the recording. I took out my earbuds. The office around me faded into a dull, ringing white noise. My husband wasn't just gaslighting me to protect his mother. He was a willing, active participant in my physical torture. He knew his mother was poisoning me. He was allowing it. He was encouraging it, using it as a psychological weapon to wear me down so he could keep the house and his retirement fund when he eventually dumped me. The betrayal was so profound, so violently absolute, that I didn't shed a single tear. The sadness evaporated instantly, burned away by a rage so hot it felt holy. I wasn't a spineless little mouse. They were about to find out exactly who they had been fucking with. On Wednesday afternoon, I got the email from the toxicology lab. Attached was a heavily detailed PDF. I scrolled down to the summary section. Results indicate the presence of high concentrations of sodium picosulfate, a potent stimulant laxative, and trace amounts of ipecacuanha alkaloid, emetine, an inducer of severe gastrointestinal distress and cramping. Notes: the concentration found in the sample, approximate 50 grams of mashed potatoes, equates to roughly 8 to 10 times the recommended adult medicinal dosage. Ingestion of this amount would cause violent, rapid bowel evacuation, severe dehydration, agonizing abdominal cramping, and potential electrolyte imbalance. I printed 3 copies of the report. On Thursday, I didn't go to work. I drove downtown to a high-rise office building and walked into the offices of Keller and Vance, the most ruthless, bloodthirsty family law firm in the city. I asked for Amanda Vance. I had done my research. She was known as a shark who destroyed cheating husbands and abusive spouses for sport. I sat in her sleek, glass-walled office and laid everything on her desk. The printed toxicology report. A USB drive containing the video of Brenda spiking the food. The audio recording of Brad and Brenda discussing the poisoning. And my medical records, showing over 100 visits, co-pays, and painful procedures I had endured. Amanda Vance, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a tailored suit, reviewed the materials in complete silence. She watched the video. She listened to the audio. She read the lab report. When she finally looked up, her expression was a mix of professional awe and deep, simmering anger. "Sarah," Amanda said quietly. "This goes way beyond family court. This is aggravated assault. This is premeditated poisoning. This is a felony, and your husband is an accessory before and after the fact." "I know," I said, my voice steady. "I want to ruin them, Amanda. I want the house. I want his 401k. I want damages for medical expenses and emotional distress. But most importantly, I want them to burn." Amanda leaned back, steepling her fingers. "If we take this straight to the police, they will arrest her. But Brad might be able to afford a decent defense lawyer who could argue he didn't know the exact nature of the liquid, or that he was just humoring his crazy mother. He might escape jail time. Then how do I trap him?" I asked. Amanda smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "We don't just spring the trap in a courtroom. We trap him in his own lies." "Is there a family event coming up?" "Yes," I said. "This Saturday. It's Gary and Brenda's 35th wedding anniversary. They're hosting a massive dinner. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The whole extended family." "Perfect," Amanda said. "I am going to draft the divorce papers, the restraining orders, and the civil lawsuit for damages. I will also contact a detective I know in the precinct. We will arrange a coordinated strike. But you, Sarah, you have a role to play on Saturday. Are you strong enough to sit at that table?" "I've spent 3 years shitting my guts out while they laughed at me," I said coldly. "I'm strong enough." Saturday arrived. The house was packed. Brenda had pulled out all the stops. The dining room was extended with fold-out tables to accommodate the 25 guests. Uncle Dave, Aunt Carol, Brad's snobby cousin Melissa, and a dozen other relatives were milling around, drinking wine and laughing. I arrived with Brad. I was wearing a stunning, form-fitting red dress. I had done my hair and makeup perfectly. I didn't look frail. I didn't look like a victim. "Sarah, wow," Brad's cousin Melissa said, looking me up and down. "You look great. Usually, you look so tired." "I'm feeling much better lately, Melissa." "Thank you," I smiled. Brad looked at me, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He didn't like me looking confident. He preferred me hunched over, apologizing for existing. Brenda emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Dinner is served, everyone. Please, take your seats." The spread was massive. Roast beef, glazed carrots, garlic bread, and a massive tureen of creamy mushroom soup. "Sarah, sweetie," Brenda called out over the noise of scraping chairs. I made you your own special bowl of soup. It's dairy-free, so it won't upset your tummy. She placed a distinctly patterned blue bowl at my setting. Eat up, honey. Thank you, Brenda. You're always looking out for me, I said sweetly. I sat down. Brad sat to my right. Brenda was at the head of the table next to Gary. As everyone began passing the bread and pouring wine, I kept my eyes fixed on my blue bowl. The soup looked identical to the soup in the main tureen, but I knew what was in it. Brad, I whispered, leaning over to him. Can you go grab me a glass of water from the kitchen? I forgot to get one. Brad rolled his eyes, sighing heavily. Seriously? You couldn't have gotten it before we sat down? Please, I said softly. He muttered under his breath, pushed his chair back, and walked into the kitchen. The moment his back was turned, and while the relatives were deeply engaged in loud conversation, I reached out. With lightning speed, I swapped my blue bowl with Brad's white bowl of soup. I slid my bowl directly onto his placemat, and pulled his untainted soup onto mine. Seconds later, Brad returned with a glass of tap water and slammed it down in front of me. There. Thanks, honey, I said. He sat down, picked up his spoon, and immediately started eating the soup from the blue bowl. He was a fast eater, shoveling the thick, creamy liquid into his mouth. I watched him swallow every drop of the poison meant for me. I casually ate from the white bowl, making sure to make eye contact with Brenda down the table. She was watching me, a self-satisfied smirk playing on her lips. She thought I was eating the spiked soup. I smiled back at her and took a deliberate, exaggerated bite. Dinner proceeded. The roast beef was carved. The wine flowed. Gary stood up and gave a toast to his 35 years of marriage with Brenda, praising her as the ultimate caretaker, the perfect mother, the heart of the family. Here, here. Brad cheered, raising his glass. I checked my watch. It had been 45 minutes since the soup. Brad's metabolism was fast. Suddenly, Brad stopped laughing. He set his wine glass down hard. A sheen of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, pressing a hand to his stomach. You okay, Brad? Uncle Dave asked from across the table. Yeah, Brad grunted, his face turning an ashen shade of gray. Just stomach cramp. He tried to smile, but his eyes were wide. I knew that feeling. The sudden, violent twist in the intestines. The realization that you have mere seconds before a disaster. Brad stood up. He didn't excuse himself. He just bolted. He knocked his chair over in his haste, sprinting out of the dining room and down the hall toward the guest bathroom. The table went silent. Oh dear, Brenda said, her brow furrowing. Did he eat too fast? A few minutes passed. The polite conversation resumed, but it was strained. From down the hall, muffled but unmistakable, came the sounds of Brad's agony. Splashing, groaning. It sounded like he was fighting a demon in there. 10 minutes later, he hadn't emerged. Brenda stood up, looking genuinely worried. I'm going to go check on him. Wait, I said loudly. My voice cut through the chatter like a gunshot. Everyone stopped talking and looked at me. I stood up. I picked up my phone from the table and connected it to the house's Wi-Fi network. Earlier that evening, I had quietly synced my phone to the massive 70-inch smart TV mounted on the living room wall, which was perfectly visible from the dining table. Sarah, what's wrong? Gary asked. Before you go check on Brad, Brenda, I said, my voice eerily calm, I think we should all watch something. A little anniversary presentation I put together. I tapped my screen. The TV flared to life. It didn't play a slideshow of family photos. It played the crystal clear, high-definition security footage of Brenda from a few days prior. The family watched in confused silence as the giant screen showed Brenda pulling the amber dropper bottle from her apron. What is this? Aunt Carol asked. On screen, Brenda squeezed 4 heavy drops into the separate, smaller bowl. The bowl she always claimed was special for me. They watched her stir it. They watched her malicious, twisted sneer. Brenda's face drained of all blood. She stood frozen, staring at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. Sarah, turn that off. Where did you get that? I wasn't done, I said, hitting next. The screen cut to black, and the audio recording filled the room, amplified by the soundbar. Brad's voice, she's just getting worse, Mom. The smell. I can't even look at her right now. It's disgusting. Brenda's voice, I told you, Bradley. She has a weak constitution. You let her break herself down. When she finally leaves, she won't have the energy to fight you in court. Brad's voice, are you sure this is going to work? What if she figures it out? Brenda's voice, she won't figure it out. That special liquid I bought online? It leaves the system in 24 hours. Completely untraceable. The recording ended. The silence in the dining room was deafening. It was the silence of a bomb going off, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Uncle Dave stared at Brenda, horrified. Cousin Melissa covered her mouth with both hands. Gary looked like he was going to have a heart attack, looking back and forth between his wife and the TV. You've been poisoning her? Gary whispered, his voice cracking. Brenda, my God, you've been poisoning Sarah? It's fake. Brenda shrieked, panic finally breaking through. She faked it. It's AI. She's a psychotic bitch trying to ruin our family. AI? I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. I reached into my purse and pulled out the thick stack of papers, the toxicology report. I slammed it down onto the dining table. Sodium picosulfate. 10 times the recommended dose. I had your food tested, Brenda. You've been giving me chemical laxatives and emetics for 3 years. Over 100 times. You're lying. Brenda screamed, lunging across the table toward me, knocking over wine glasses. Uncle Dave caught her by the shoulders, restraining her. Brenda, stop. Just then, the bathroom door down the hall opened. Brad staggered out. He looked like a corpse. His shirt was soaked in sweat, his pants were unbuttoned, and he was trembling violently. He leaned against the doorframe, clutching his stomach, his eyes bloodshot. Mom. He groaned. Mom, what the fuck did you put in the food? I think I'm dying. Brenda froze in Dave's grip. She looked at Brad. Then she looked at the table. She looked at the blue bowl sitting at Brad's empty place setting. Her eyes widened in absolute horror. Bradley, did you eat Sarah's soup? I asked him to fetch me some water, I said, my voice dripping with venom. And while his back was turned, I swapped the bowls. Enjoy the feeling, Brad. I've endured it 100 times because of you. Brad stared at me, his groggy, pain-addled brain trying to process the words. You swapped them? Suddenly, his stomach let out an audible, monstrous gurgle. He doubled over, groaning in agony, and tried to turn back to the bathroom, but his legs gave out. He collapsed onto the hardwood floor, curling into a fetal position, crying. Call an ambulance. Brenda screamed, fighting Uncle Dave. She poisoned my boy. She poisoned him. No, a deep voice said from the front hallway. Everyone turned. 3 uniformed police officers and a plainclothes detective stood in the entryway. The front door had been left unlocked for late arriving guests. They had been standing there for the last 5 minutes, listening to the entire presentation. Detective Miller stepped forward, flashing his badge. Nobody needs an ambulance for a laxative overdose. But we are going to need a few people to step outside. He looked at Brenda. Brenda Sterling, you are under arrest for aggravated assault, poisoning, and reckless endangerment. 2 officers moved in. Uncle Dave backed away instantly, raising his hands. The officers grabbed Brenda's arms and yanked them behind her back, slapping the steel cuffs on her wrists. "No! Get your hands off me!" Brenda thrashed wildly, her sweet Midwestern persona completely shattered, revealing the ugly, rabid animal underneath. "I did it for my son. She was ruining his life. She's a barren, defective whore." "Shut up, Mom. Shut up." Brad sobbed from the floor, holding his stomach, realizing the gravity of what was happening. Detective Miller walked over to Brad. He looked down at him with utter disgust. "Bradley Sterling, you're also under arrest for conspiracy and being an accessory to assault. Can you stand up, or do my officers need to drag you out in your own mess?" Brad tried to stand, but another wave of violent cramps hit him. He gasped, falling back to his knees. A foul smell began to permeate the hallway. He had lost control. Cousin Melissa gagged and ran toward the kitchen. The rest of the family backed away in absolute revulsion. The officers didn't care. They hauled Brad up by his armpits. He was sobbing, begging, a grown man crying for his mother while feces stained the back of his khaki pants. They dragged him out the front door, right behind his screaming, cursing mother. Gary sat slumped in his chair, his face buried in his hands, weeping quietly. The grand anniversary dinner lay in ruins around him. I stood at the table, untouched by the chaos. I calmly packed up the toxicology report, my phone, and my purse. I looked around at the stunned, silent family members. "The turkey is dry," I said casually. "And I'll be taking the house." I walked out the front door, past the flashing red and blue lights of the cruisers, past my ex-husband crying in the back of a police car, and stepped out into the cool, crisp night air. For the first time in 3 years, my stomach felt perfectly fine.